Hello, welcome. Today in this video, I want to get into what I'm starting to feel is at the heart of all of this whole non-dual process. And it's like its end goal, right? And beyond, the end goal beyond the absolute. Because that we all understand the absolute perspective. If you've been around non-duality, there's this perspective of everything's just everything is the empty, luminous nature of reality, or simply already the case, right? Wholeness and completeness is already the case, and I think it's a beautiful movement, a beautiful step. But I was watching this thing on YouTube the other day, and it's this old guy, and he's telling this story about this near-death experience he had. And in the near-death experience he had, he dies and he goes up to heaven. And he's at the gates of heaven, and he's pleading with God because he wants to come back down to earth. And he's telling God all the good works he did. And this guy he was a Christian, and he used to preach to people. He even fostered children and did a lot of other really good things. Like, he really lived Christianity by the book. He prayed to God every day, and he kind of if there was this thing of how to get into heaven as a Christian, he ticked them all off. But the interesting thing that happens is God, when he gets to when he's pleading with him, says, "I do not know you," and kind of curses him out. And what he's saying, and this guy's obviously very confused, and he's like, "What do you mean? I called you Lord every day. I did your works. And God says to him, "You did it for false gods." And the guy was confused again. "What do you mean, false gods? I called out to your name." And he's like, "No, you worshipped the devil's greatest trick, the self." And in the video, the guy he says, at that moment, if God sent him to hell, he would have said amen. And right, so I watched this video and I took it very metaphorically, right? I don't believe in a heaven and a hell and that God judges us when we die. That was his experience he had when he died. But this point that, right, he'd done all these great things in his life, but it was all done for self. He was worshipping himself. He wasn't doing it for God. He was doing it for his ego, for his mind. And it struck me quite deeply because I started to reflect upon my own life and all the things that I'd done in the name of good, and seen that a lot of my life had been very selfish, as I was living for self. And I think I haven't been posting as much on this channel or at all recently. And I think there's a part of me that does want to talk about non-duality and that loves expressing this and comes out of joy. But there's also a part of me that does this for myself, that I want to prop myself up higher than I am. So I think I've been not wanted to take a break, but I haven't been able to make videos. There's just no flow when I turn the camera on, and I've had to sort of honor that and step away. But I think a big part of that is trying to do this without self, because I think the more you're in a position where you're helping people, I say that with quote unquote, and and doing good things, the more easy it is to fall into the trap of self-worship. So and I think this orientation, this is why we see gurus gone bad. It's usually the ones who start taking photos of themselves and they want people to worship them, and it's this, it's because it survives deep spiritual realization. It kind of comes in. It's why I think a lot of religion, why it goes so bad. It's this I don't know, just worship of self is the only way I can put it, like in the video. And yeah, I think to me, that's living selflessly, like quite literally, right? In like Buddhism and stuff, but in a lot of religions is like kind of the heart of it. It's just not talked about as much or emphasized, particularly these days. And I don't think it's fault, but especially with non-duality, right? There's no morals, there's no sort of preliminary instructions that we preach or things we have to do. It's very just direct and on to a pointing. And I think it's beautiful and it has its purpose. And I think it's important when you're on your journey to focus on your own path and step back from reality and go within go deep within and heal your suffering, right? But I think this is a problem that probably arises after we've done a lot of work, after we've done a lot of emotion work, after we've found equanimity, found peace in ourselves, and feel very zen. I think this is where that self-orientation can slide back in, because we start to, I think, become a little too fond of ourselves. We're a bit too impressed with our equanimity, our peace, our way we move through the world. And yeah, I felt called to make a video about it because I noticed it within myself, and I think other people would appreciate it because it's not usually pointed out. And it is talked about, in religion, like Buddhism has the path of the Bodhisattva, and I think, or how I looked at them, is they were kind of like preliminary steps, right? Like, oh, we got to be a good person, and that's part of the Dharma. But I think what I'm seeing now, it's actually an essential step and a deeper step than the absolute. Because I think we can get fixated in the absolute. Everything's just this, empty, luminous appearance, right? And that's a beautiful realization to have. But I think there's a deeper movement than that. And it's not really like logically makes sense, because that absolute realization kind of cancels everything out. It cancels any idea of anything, right? Reality just gets annihilated, right? Or conceptual reality, right? Especially things like stories and ideas of compassion and stories. But if we look at the 10 ox herding pictures, the last picture, after he transcends the bull and the whip and then transcends even that, right? It comes back to the marketplace. To drink, it says to drink with the people. And I think this is like one of those weird essential steps to when we've found our peace, or at any way along the journey. And I think if we're ever feeling stuck, it's because we're becoming a bit too self-obsessed. I guess, the question after all of this said is like, okay, how do I live selflessly? How do I not worship the self? And I think the first and most simple step is noticing it, right? It is noticing that we do have a tendency to, move, like orientate towards ourselves predominantly. Like we are the most important thing in reality, or we're the most perfect thing in reality, or even in the negative term that we're, the most unperfect thing in reality and something's wrong with us, right? These are still orientations towards self, towards fixation, trying to fix the problem of me. And I think it's just noticing that tendency, noticing the tendency to see that we do orientate towards self. After we notice that, we have to I think the instant feeling is going to be to reject it, right? Like, oh, that's because it's something that most humans dislike, right? Is pride, piety, acting all like better than everyone else. So when we see that within inside ourselves, there's going to be a strong feeling to reject and push it away. But I think the most important, with approaching this, we have to see it just as like a child It's a wounded part of ourself that wants to like puff itself up. And we just have to see it as that, as just this child that really wants to make itself look bigger than it is. And that's, I think, the movement forward, right? It's just noticing that and accepting it and loving it. And then, right, for me, selflessness means to just accept and love everything that's arising. It's not judging things anymore. It's not about action or like, I'm going to go do this nice thing for these people, which is lovely, right? But it's more about just, okay, can I love everything within myself and everyone that arises? And that's what I would see as selflessness. And what energy comes out, out of feeling this way towards the world and myself and others, what do I feel called to do? What energy arises out of that feeling? Because sometimes we might feel to love ourselves in that moment and put a boundary up with someone who's taking our energy. Or it may look like going and looking and feeding homeless people. But I think it's trying to love everything and forgetting about ourselves, and that in that process of trying to love everything that's arising in life is to kind of forget ourselves in the beauty of interaction with reality. So that's my idea on what it is, right? It's still fresh to me. I'm still inquiring, what does it mean to live selflessly? Because we know how to live, how to see through the self and see through the nature of reality. And that's beautiful and important, and I urge you to go on that path. But what's the movement after that? And where do people get stuck? Why do people realize these beautiful things and still act like assholes? And it's because there's still an orientation towards self. And it's a hard pill to swallow. But I think we're all victims of it. Not victims of it, but we're humans. We all have we're flawed. And it's not about being the perfect human. It's just like, how much can you accept about your human nature and reality? So yeah. And maybe this is what's meant. If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope it made sense. See you guys next time.